Hello everyone and welcome back to another Hearts of Iron 4 Dev Diary. ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3, Argentina, Brazil. I guess it's time we do Chile. As a small aside though, just before we get started, it was said earlier that we are actually getting a couple of bonus focus trees, I think for Paraguay and Uruguay. So there will actually be additional content beyond this content, but don't expect those focus trees to be anywhere near as comprehensive as what we've seen for Argentina, Brazil, and now Chile. So, with Chile being spoken of, let's jump into the Dev Diary. So this week's Dev Diary begins as we've seen with the previous two Dev Diaries, by giving you some backstory as to how Chile is actually in the state prior to World War II, and some of the things we're going to be covering as we go down its focus tree. While many people's understanding of Chile may go as far as Augusto Pinochet and the coup d'etats of '73, to start with Hoi 4, you're going to have to go a little bit further back. So going back to the Great Depression, as it spread throughout South America, the Dev Diary talks about how Chile was actually struck the hardest, with a lot of its nitrate and copper exports being completely shut down. As one can imagine, as the economy begins to falter due to the Great Depression, a period of great political upheaval and rebellions, coups, destabilization all really take over the country, up until, let's say, 1932, at which point the former President Arturo Alessandri, which is your starting leader, will do some counter-coup and try to get the country really back on track. This is not including the fact that Chile was involved in other conflicts, including the War of the Pacific against Peru and Bolivia. All in all, Chile is in a very flip-floppy position in terms of their political landscape, but they're carrying on. They can still manage a war or two, so they'll get by. With that all being said, we get a look at our trendy leader and some starting national spirits. We'll see that Arturo here also gets a starting leader trait, giving him good political power gain, stability and ideology drift defense, which I guess is supposed to encapsulate his desire to try and restabilize the country. The Dev Diary continues by talking about how Chile has grown since its independence, both north and south, and while I don't think this image shows too much, if you look at the very top you can see that there's a yellow outline of two provinces that actually form a single state. This is most likely the Tacna state, which was sold back to Peru in the Treaty of Lima, and it's interesting to see that it's been represented there with those two provinces, because that means even though Peru isn't necessarily having a rework in this DLC, they are going to see some state changes. Surely Chile is not going to declare war on Peru for that state back, right? Right? As for the starting spirits, one can probably imagine that things aren't the best in a country with so much upheaval and economic downfall following the Great Depression. The Mapuche conflict is very annoying, with its consumer good factories factor being a negative push, as well as your production efficiency retention. The hacienda, which is a term I wasn't too familiar with, seems to be centers of productivity, farming, mining, production, these kind of things, and that's why you can see that they give you a production efficiency cap, but they're also like a center place of a workforce, a very lower class workforce it seems. So a lot of the people in your country are going to be working there, thus not recruitable, and I guess that's also where centers of communist uprising will begin, with the workers. Next up we've got a near anarchic society, which is, yeah, of all the destabilization national spirits you could get, that one's pretty bad. The political power gain here is really terrible. The stability is equally terrible. I think of all of the national spirits you want to get rid of, this is pretty high on the list. The Republican Guard follows on from that, being one of the key forces in the Chilean army, which is actually a positive national spirit, giving you some division defense on core territory, and some ability to counter the recruitable population factor debuff we saw earlier. And lastly, we've got the Chilean economy, because that nitrate and copper trade is long gone, and so with consumer good factories factor up, and the construction speed and factory output, that's another one of those really bad ones that you're gonna want to get rid of as quickly as possible. The Dev Diary also notes that you will start with Legacy of the Naval Arms Race and the Monroe Doctrine, which were talked about in the previous two Dev Diaries. If we're to add those into the mix, I think that makes 7 starting national spirits, which could be the most of any starting nation in 36. But I could be wrong. You tell me. Next up we get a look at the Chilean army, as well as some of its icons, and it does look like a certain regiment there is using a Pickelhauser, is that how it's pronounced, the German World War I helmet? I'm sure that the Chileans also could have used this helmet, but it would be kind of interesting to see that icon being used for, let's say, Kaiser Germany, as like a soft little addition to them on the side. Nevertheless, they'll also be starting with some militia units that were added since, I think, Byblood alone. Moving on, we see a collection of some of the political advisors you're going to be seeing as Chile. There's not too much to comment on here because you never actually know what the buffs of the different advisors are going to do, nor do you actually know which like ideologies and playthroughs allow you to take which characters, but it's always good to look at their art and have some idea of what you're going to be dealing with. For example, I'm kind of interested to know what Gabriela Mistral is going to be up to as a popular Latinian poet. Maybe she'll give you a casual 5% recruitable population. Surely that's balanced, right? And the last thing we'll cover before heading into the focus tree is some of the industrial concerns. You see 8 of them here, and 8 is actually 8 is very generous. There's clearly been a lot put into this country with 8 of them. Boom! Okay, focus tree time. So as we usually do before we start moving down the focus tree, let's just take a brief look at the focus tree in its entirety and kind of get a feel for what it looks like. So moving into full screen, we can take a better look at what kind of branches we're dealing with. In the middle, we've got a historical branch, which seems to be somewhat modular because it shares democratic, kind of non-aligned and even communist roots within it. This is most likely to represent the ever-changing nature of the Chilean government. I mean, lots of shifts in power, shifts in government, cabinet changes, and as such keeping it just very stable maybe didn't feel so accurate. As a result, it seems to shift and turn quite a lot. On the right, we've got a very hefty looking fash tree. Many focuses within it going all the way down, goodness me. Even 2 different nations to form at the bottom. On the left, we seem to have what appears to be a monarchy tree moving down, and I'm noticing a French flag in here. So that looks like it's going to be some fun to deal with. And finally, on the right, I do have the foresight to suggest that this is going to be like a Native American / Mapuche-esque tree, where you're trying to undo maybe some of the wrongdoings that the previous Chilean government had done. On the top right, we also have the industry tree, which we'll be covering next, and hidden off screen is the military, navy and air tree that Brazil and Argentina both share with you. So if you want to go see that, I think I cover it in my Brazil dev diary. Now interestingly, a lot of the time that we see industry trees in Hoi 4, they're usually very vertical. They kind of head straight down. You go like, you pick the civ branch or you pick the military branch, but in general you're always moving down. What I really like about this focus tree is the industry tree is actually much more horizontal, where you take one of the initial focuses and all of the different industrial options are laid before you. Do you want to impose new taxes, construct hydroelectric stations? Do you want to work towards international loans? Instead of railroading you down a direction for how you're supposed to build up your country, you're just given a myriad of choices at your disposal, and you pick and choose which one you want for what you're building up. Starting us up at the top, you'll have to decide whether you want to go with the Public Works project, giving you some infrastructure and construction buffs, or you could pick Dissolve the Covenza, giving you steel, chromium, tungsten and aluminium. I mean, I don't want to speak too early, but this does seem like a very good focus to pick. After you've decided to go down either the left or the right path, you'll eventually have to devalue the peso, which once you've done, will allow you to unlock another branching collection of focuses, all which can be sort of taken in a this one, that one or that one. I don't know, I just think it's a really well designed horizontal tree. I think they've done really good with this. So making your way down to devaluing the peso, you will get the gains devaluing the peso for 1 year. After that 1 year though, all the focuses below it will become available. I think it's somewhat similar to the French monarchy mechanic, where you have to amend the constitution for a year, and after that year's up, you can bring back Napoleon or the Orléans or whatever you want. In this case, instead of bringing back Napoleon, we're going to be getting 2 military factories, which some could argue is even more powerful. Carrying on, we get a brief footnote about the military branch that I mentioned earlier, and how a few of the focuses will actually be unique in the Chilean tree. Example includes the first focus of the army branch, which will remove the Republican Guard, give you a mill and get you going on reforming your military, and a land of mountains, which I guess speaks for itself. Chile, yeah, it's a pretty mountainous country, which gives all of your special troops mountain bonuses towards defense, movement, attack. Yeah, pretty good all around. Even paratroopers are getting some mountain attack. I guess the paratroopers could land in the mountains. Sure. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to land in the mountains if I was a paratrooper, but hey, if I put that transport plane in that airport, You are landing in that mountain. No denying my order. And so we have arrived at the political tree, starting with the historical democratic branch, which will surely be staying as a historical democratic nation no matter what, no problems. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, the economic instability and a myriad of other problems have really started to cause a major upset and unrest in the nation of Chile. As a result, there is an imminent, how do you even say that word, Nascista? I'm not sure. There is an imminent Nascista coup attempt in what looks to be about 3 years. As a result, you're going to have to take a series of decisions and focuses to try and suppress them before they actually start their revolt, including this focus, suppressing them, which has an in-baked mechanic where the insurgency can be weakened. In addition, at the bottom, it also mentions how you can modify the near-anarchic society, trying to really bring that chaos down. So this is probably one of the focuses you should beeline for at the start of your campaign. We can finally see the tree in HD. Goodness, all the previous images were kind of blurry in my opinion. So we can endorse the Constitution of 1925 all the way down to the election of the president in 1938. It seems that all of the focuses in this section, such as volunteers to Republicans, constructing the Estadio Nacional, are all based around the policies of Arturo Alessandri. As such, they seem to only be available when he is the country leader, and when those elections come, in 1938, you won't necessarily be able to take these focuses anymore. As such, you should probably make sure to cash in on the buffs you do want to get from these focuses early, lest they become locked later on. An example of one of the policies that he enacted would be these inflation controls, which will help give the construction speed to the Chilean economy, but more importantly, opening up the Bank of Central Chile as an industrial concern, as well as buffing it by giving it minus 10% consumer goods factory factor. That is nothing to be scoffed at. Alas, nothing lasts forever though, and the 1930 presidential election will eventually arrive, and you'll have to decide who is next on the presidential ticket. Surprisingly, there are 4 candidates. That's quite a lot for, usually you just get like 2, if you're lucky 3, but 4? My goodness. I think this is really trying to represent how different and varied the different political spectrum of Chile was in this period. And if that wasn't enough, there are also elections in 1942 and 1946, with 4 available leaders. I don't think one person living can complain about Chile content after that. I mean, that is a lot of different ways for you to pick your leaders and choose the outcome of your country. Goodness me. So all of those choices aren't just cosmetic. They do actually impact the way you play your focus tree. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the communist stuff, the right-wing stuff, sort of democratic, sort of non-aligned, are all present inside of the historical tree. As a result, which president you pick will actually determine which focuses you unlock. Maybe you want to go from liberal to social democrat, then back to liberal, then to conservatives who ban communists, etc, etc. Design your own chaos. Unfortunately, switching around your politics like a light switch might not be so popular to everybody, such as in this case when the military aren't too happy about a sudden socialist arrival. As such, the near-anarchic society can actually get worse. Oh goodness, that doesn't look too happy. If things get really bad, this particular general may even try a revolt. -1 general, I suppose. The further down the tree you go, there are times where you may have to make important decisions about which kind of direction you want to take your democratic Chile. In this case, you'll have to decide between increasing presidential powers, reapproaching America, or returning to a more parliamentary era. Now, being British, I should have some bias towards wanting to return to the parliamentary era, but that seems to me to say a -35% political power gain, or if we go with a presidential power, we get 25% positive political power gain. I'm kind of getting the feeling that the whole becoming a dictator could be slightly more powerful. And finally, moving towards the bottom of the tree, we see focuses such as Protect Easter Island, when you can finally get involved in World War II and take the fight to the fash. In this case, you're going after Japan because your coastal border is the Pacific, so the Japanese are kind of, I guess, your major threat. Additionally, there seems to be some nice flavour sprinkled throughout the playthrough to really build up the tone and setting of what actually happened, such as the Great Chilean Earthquake, which is going to cause you some manpower losses and really bad local population losses in Santiago. Oh, and you can also lose a ship, the SS Tolton. -1 convoy. Or if you want to go slightly more ahistorical with your path, you can also choose to do some anachronistic focuses, including going to war with Argentina, it seems, over Tierra del Fuego. So there's the historical tree. I think it's looking pretty good. I really like how you can flip-flop and change around as you go down. It's interesting that there wasn't too much mention of stuff like the War of the Pacific, but maybe that comes up in other focus trees, just not the historical stuff. Regardless, we now get to look at some of these leaders, including a stock market financer who gives you some nice little buffs, and the general president. Surely Carlos here isn't going to be a central figure in any of the alternative history branches, right? Goodness me, there's a lot of white men in here, isn't there? Marmaduke Grove Vahelo, Easter Island socialist. I didn't even know that Easter Island had socialists. The more you know, I suppose. Moving on to alt history, we can now take a look at the communist sub-branch. So as mentioned earlier, the historical branch has the options to pick and choose where you really want to go with the government because of, as we said, how chaotic it was. If you pick up a communist president, or leader I suppose, you can take the future of Chile and start moving towards your own communist utopia. This does not, however, escape you from the final choice all communist nations must pick. Soviet Union or go alone. Call it. You have to call it or it won't be fair. At the bottom is a very strong looking focus called the Union of Hispanic Republics, in which you seem to get cores on over what looks to be the entirety of South America. Honestly, that focus seems so strong, I'm not sure you need anything else to accompany it. I mean, yeah, just core South America. Moving on down, we head to the Fash path, beginning with denouncing the state of near anarchy, which, to be fair, having an anarchy state is probably not the best. This path will involve you taking the position of the Nazista that we saw earlier, as starting with the 1936 coup. However, instead of trying to stop it, you are of course now trying to employ it. The dev diary says that as you build it up, you will eventually take full control of the country, but I'm not sure if this is implying that you will have to fight a civil war, or whether you just get enough support that you can do kind of a semi-peaceful takeover. I guess all in all, you may have to prepare yourself for a civil war if you want to go Fash. Succeeding in your takeover, however, does unlock a decently sized focus tree. That is a pretty good amount of focuses in this entire section, isn't it? So the top series of focuses seem to be about securing a lot of those starting national spirits we saw that were really negative, including the Hacienda, which I believe gave you some communist support. You probably want to get rid of that. And also removing the Mapuche conflict. Again, negative debuffs, not really something you want to be dealing with. And akin to what we saw with the communists, there is of course the ultimate option. Do you want to join the Axis or do you want to go it alone? But what's very interesting is with Abide with the Franquist model, you will no longer be able to join factions. When you say you're going alone, you are going alone only. That doesn't mean of course that you can't start your own faction. I'm just saying don't get any funny ideas about joining a certain East Asian co-prosperity sphere. I think your invite's going to get lost in the mail. Moving on down, you're going to start to see focuses about expanding your territory, because what's a Fash path without going to war? In the case of Peru, it seems that with revoking the Treaty of Lima, you're going to give them an ultimatum where they have to hand back some territory, giving me some pretty severe Sudetenland vibes. And going into full screen mode, we can actually see what we can unlock below it. So cooperating with the Axis, hosting some German intelligence, you can militarize the state and get the spirit of the War of the Pacific. So I wondered if the War of the Pacific would come up again, giving you some claims over Peru. That's La Paz right there. Moving further on down, we can also restore the Old Kingdom and get Conquistadors de Pedro de Valverde. Most importantly, giving you some minus 25% justify war goal time and division attack plus 10. Those are pretty good to keep. In the end, there will be two paths to cover. So as I mentioned just before, restore the Old Kingdom. Chile will be known as the Kingdom of Chile, which is kind of interesting because you're not a monarchist, but there is monarchist tree in this focus tree, so a different type of kingdom, I suppose. Or unite Hispanic America, in which you're going to unite, I guess, the entirety of South America. This one seems to give you more cores, but this one seems to be more flavorful. I guess it's really up to you whether you want to go with the less cores, more flavor, or if you just want to go with the Federation. Maybe it would be good if this one had decisions to core territory and sort of expand the Old Kingdom, but from a purely gameplay perspective, you're probably better uniting the Hispanic America. And finally, let's wrap this up by talking about monarchy. Good old monarchy. So in a time of national unrest and imminent coups, it's not, I guess, unimaginable that a former president, a General Carlos, who I mentioned earlier, would do a little coup of his own, with a more monarchist intention, I suppose. Taking this path will find you in a civil war. I see no system where you're going to avoid the civil war. So if you're taking this path, be prepared for some mountain gameplay. Not only will it be a civil war, but it will be a two-front civil war on your north and your south, so this could be quite painful. So due to being outnumbered by your north and south flanks, that's unfortunate, you may receive a mysterious offer to crown a Frenchman, Jacques-Antoine Bernard, in exchange for his help. With this, you can form the kingdom of Araucania and Patagonia. Probably said wrong. Okay, you didn't hear this from me. Okay, I never said this. But isn't it kind of funny that a French king in Chile is going to have more focuses than the French monarchy paths for Napoleon and the Orleans? Like, oh, you want to do a French monarchy path? Have you considered playing in Chile? But I never said that. You never heard that from me. Some of the focuses you can be expecting include the Royal Scouts, which gives you 2.5 recruitable population. Je suis le déluge has something to worry about now. Oh my goodness, it carries on. I do not believe it. So following on from that is not only reclaiming your namesake, but also Patagonia and, quote, becoming the Napoleon Bonaparte of South America. My goodness. And as we can see here, we've got focuses for Peru, for Peru and Ecuador, building up the states that you've got and turning them into cores. And I mean, this is really putting salt on the wound, but you can take Je suis la déluge as Chile, meaning that one of the core focuses that you'll find in the French focus tree is available to Chile. The real question now is, can you core France as Chile? Because you are a French king, right, in Chile. That's the whole point. So if you can find a way to take France, I'm not sure how you would do it, but let's say hypothetically you're on a world conquest, could you take France? Wait, I've just realised there's going to be an achievement, isn't there? It's going to be like, no, I'm the real France. As a French monarch in Chile, hold all French cores in Europe. Oh, that's going to be that. It's 100% going to be that. If there's not an achievement like that, I have completely missed the mark, but there almost certainly will be. Also, claim the Mexican throne. You can integrate the Mexican realm. Core Mexico. Oh no, this is really good. This is genuinely good. Goodness me, French monarchy players in shambles. Okay, I think that's enough cooing over the very, very interesting French-Chilean monarchy path as we move over to the Mapuche conflict. I probably have been saying that wrong this whole time, but never mind. The core of the focus tree involves building up the underground Mapuche nationalist movement before eventually arriving at a civil war. It seems that none of the paths you can take down this branch will involve avoiding a civil war, so I hope you're ready for some internal conflict. Assuming you have won your war against Chile, you'll have a series of focuses allowing you to expand your domain to previously held territories prior to colonialization. As we can see here, there are some pretty decent buffs for you to get, including a legacy of the Capulican, which gives you an attack bonus against major countries. That's nothing to be scoffed at. In addition, plenty of cores to be taking, including those in, Patagonia, parts of Argentina. In the bottom left, the crusade against imperialism is a minus 60% generate war goal tension and a minus 80% justify war goal time. Oh, you can just stack these wars up instantly, back to back to back to back wars. And those wars are not without content themselves because, my goodness, have you seen this? This is as comprehensive as, the Rome formable nation decision. In it, you have the option to liberate, reorganize, integrate different territories. And to be honest, I just think this has been done with love. This has been so well done. Look, they've got all of these different icons representing the cultures and the indigenous peoples who live there all throughout. And these aren't just coring random places either. These actually have some, I can't speak for all of them, but seem to have some good content within them in that you can release the Inca Empire So this is going to be in Peru, right? The Inca Empire? I mean, that means liberating the Hawaiian people. That's Hawaii is releasable. Samoa. Wow. Oh yes, we definitely get to see some of the stuff you can do. There's Brazil. There's a Guami Nation. Inca. There's the Inca. The United States of Native America. Wow. I cannot believe it. The Inuits are here. They did the Inuits too. The First Nations. They've got the Maya. Oh, this is really well done. Really put together. I like this a lot. Here's the $1 million question though. Can you have a game rule where you start the game with America being decolonized? Because that means you could start a game as like decolonized America and all of these nations exist, and then you could play as like Britain or France or Spain and go recolonize the Americas. Now wouldn't that be cool? Just as like a fun little game mode you could play on your own. It seems Easter Island has got some love, and it seems that the country is ruled by a baby. Valentino, 30% division defense on core territory. Okay, I am not looking forward to having to navally invade this place. No shot. And it goes on because there are also a series of relevant indigenous people to hire into your government. Mapuche economists, Mapuche journalists, traditionalists, you name it. And with that, we see a final look at Antoine III, who is the, I believe, French king of the monarchist path, thus ending this week's Dev Diary. My goodness. It seems that there's so much for you to do there. I mean, I wasn't really expecting much, and I'm not sure how it will feel to play. Like maybe you just get bogged down in mountains a lot. But in terms of the flavour, the French monarchy, the indigenous peoples, having border conflicts with Argentina, it all seems like really fun, really interesting gameplay. Oh, I just want to play it now. I just want to play it. And yeah, will we have a releasable indigenous states game mode in the options at the start of the game? That's another big question. I won't keep you here any longer, as this was a pretty long dev diary, so I'll say thank you very much for watching. I really liked Chile. Next week it's going to be a bag of treats, so that's maybe, what, achievements, map changes, maybe a few mechanical changes. If you liked the video, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Adios.